Okay, let's unpack this. Throughout history, humanity's been, well, really captivated by the idea of miracles.
Yeah, absolutely. Those moments that just seem to defy explanation.
Yeah, stepping outside the laws of nature. Things that shape beliefs, change history.
Seas parting, animals talking.
Sick being healed, even the dead brought back. We've all heard these stories.
But what if the biggest miracle wasn't like that? Not a single event tied to one time or place.
Exactly. What if, according to one viewpoint, it's something? Well, something lasting, something different.
That's a really interesting shift, isn't it? Moving away from those historical wonders to something you can still interact with.
Right. And this deep dive, we're exploring exactly that idea. We're focusing on one source that argues for something specific, being the ultimate miracle.
The greatest one ever revealed, according to this perspective.
And that source is a YouTube video transcript. It's called The Greatest Miracle of All Time, the Quran, from the channel MercifulServant.
So our goal here is to really get into the arguments from that source.
Yeah, why does this source claim the Quran holds that top spot? How does it stack it up against miracles from other prophets?
And what makes it so unique, according to their argument?
Okay, so where does the source start? It kind of sets a historical scene first, right?
It does. It lays out a specific way of looking at miracles through history. There's a pattern, it suggests.
A pattern, meaning?
Well, the core idea is that prophets were given miracles their own people could really grasp, could understand and appreciate, often playing to that society's strengths, or maybe what they were most proud of.
Ah, so it wasn't just random displays of power. It was targeted.
Exactly. Strategically resonant, you could say, linked directly to the culture.
Okay, give us an example from the source.
Okay, so Prophet Saleh,
As-
sent to the people of Thamud.
Right, the source mentions them. What were they known for?
Incredible artisans, famous for carving huge structures right into mountains, masters of shaping stone.
So their peak achievement was literally sculpting the earth.
You got it. And Saleh's miracle, according to the source.
What was it?
A living, breathing she-camel emerging directly from a mountain.
Wow.
Yeah, the source really contrasts that. The Thamud could carve a room into a mountain, but God could create life out of mountains. It's presented as a direct challenge to their specific skill.
Undeniable in their field of expertise. Okay, what about Prophet Musa, Moses, who were Pharaoh's people, according to the source?
The source paints them as masters of magic, the dark arts, really, creating powerful illusions.
Deceiving crowds, making them believe things through trickery.
Exactly. Their power was an illusion.
So Musa's miracle fit right into that context.
Perfectly. His staff turns into a real snake, not an illusion. And it actually consumed the magician's illusions.
So it wasn't just better magic, it was fundamentally different.
Right. The source stresses that distinction. It wasn't a miracle of an illusion, it was an actual miracle of creation. And it claims the magicians themselves knew it. They recognized this wasn't their craft, it was something else.
Something divine, from Allah, as the source puts it.
Precisely. And then Prophet Isa, Jesus. The source suggests he arrived when the Romans really prided themselves on their medicine.
Medicine was their big thing then.
That's how the source frames it, yeah. A key area of advancement.
So Isa's miracles.
Were things like curing lepers, healing the blind, even raising the dead, all by God's permission, the source adds. Things beyond the medicine of the day.
So again, addressing their specific area of pride.
Yes. The source repeats the point. This is not magic, this is not medicine, this is from Allah. The miracle always fit the audience.
Okay, that makes sense as a framework. So fast forward to the Arabs at the time of Prophet Muhammad. According to this source, what was their thing? They weren't known for medicine or magic like the others.
No, they weren't. The source is very clear on this. Their greatest pride, their most developed skill was language. Eloquence, poetry. Balagha Laura, as the source terms it.
And this wasn't just a side hobby.
Not at all. It was central to their culture. The source mentions intense poetry competitions.
Like their version of the Nobel Prize or the Oscars, the source says.
Exactly. And the absolute best poems, they were inscribed and hung right on the Kaaba in Mecca. The 7 hanging poems or odes. A huge honor.
So they were incredibly confident in their language skills. Who could possibly beat us at this?
That was the attitude, yeah. And into this society, the source argues, comes Prophet Muhammad, and his miracle is the Quran.
But here's where the source makes a really interesting point. The prophet himself. He wasn't a poet, right?
Mhm.
He couldn't read or write.
Yeah, this is absolutely crucial to the source's argument. It really hammers this home. He could not even read and write. He had no poetic experience whatsoever before the revelations started.
The source even quotes the Quran on this.
It does, citing a verse saying essentially, you didn't write books or recite poetry before this came down.
So the source uses the messenger's background, his lack of those specific skills, as evidence.
Exactly. To argue that the Quran's incredibly sophisticated language couldn't have come from him, it must have a divine origin. His illiteracy becomes proof for the miracle.
Okay, so a miracle in the form of a text for a people obsessed with language, delivered by someone not known for literary skill. And the source says the text itself contains a challenge.
Yes, specific verses. The source identifies 5 verses, it says, that directly challenge people to produce something similar.
And this challenge, it sort of shrinks over time,
Yeah,
becomes easier in a way.
that's how the source presents it, like steps. First, bring a whole book like the Quran.
Okay, impossible, presumably.
Right. So the challenge narrows. Bring just 10 chapters, or surahs like it,
Still too hard?
apparently. Then it becomes bring something similar. The source notes this isn't specific book or surah.
In the final challenge.
Just one. Bring one single surah like it. The source mentions Surah Al-Baqarah, which is actually the longest chapter, as a context for one of these challenge verses. So quite a challenge, even in its simplest form.
And the source points out that you don't have to do this alone. Collaboration is allowed.
Absolutely. This is a key detail the source highlights. The verses explicitly say, go ahead and get the help of anyone besides Allah.
Anyone.
Get all of mankind. Bring all of the jinn. Bring all of the ins, humans and unseen beings. Gather everyone.
Gather literally everyone and everything and just produce one chapter like it.
That's the challenge, as laid out by the source. And the core claim is, it's never been met. Throughout history, nobody's been able to do it.
And the source says the Quran itself declares it won't be met.
Yes, it includes the statement, you shall never be able to do it. The source sees this as a divine seal on the challenge, guaranteeing the text's miraculous nature.
Okay, but then there's this reported statement from the prophet, something like, the only miracle that I have been given. How does the source square that with other reported miracles, like, splitting the moon, water from fingers?
Right, that sounds contradictory at first. The source definitely addresses this. It acknowledges, yes, technically, many miracles were attributed to the prophet.
I mean, the source even mentions a scholar writing 16 volumes listing them.
16 volumes, exactly. So only miracle needs explaining. The source offers a couple of interpretations.
Okay, like what?
First, maybe those other miracles were more situational. Specific events, maybe mostly for his followers, not an open standing challenge to everyone, everywhere, forever, like the Quran's challenge is presented.
Yeah.
But more importantly, the source argues the Quran's miracle is just so vast, so profound in its quantity and quality that compared to it,
Everything else seems minor.
all of the other miracles are trivial, is how the source puts it. It eclipses them.
Ah, okay. So not literally the sole miracle he ever performed, but the ultimate one, the defining one, the mother of all miracles.
That's the idea, the primary undeniable sign. And the source links this directly to another thing the prophet reportedly said.
Which was?
And that is why I'm optimistic that I shall have the largest ummah on the Day of Judgment.
Ummah meaning his community of followers.
Right, so the source draws a direct line. The effectiveness and power of the Quran's miracle leads to the size of the Muslim community.
So the argument is, most effective miracle ever revealed, largest number of followers over time.
Exactly, and the source claims this prediction has actually come true, just looking at the sheer numbers throughout history compared to the faithful followers of other prophets. It uses the community size as a kind of validation of the miracle's impact.
That's a big claim, connecting the miracle's power to demographics.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get deeper into why the source says the Quran's miracle is so different, so unique compared to previous ones. It mentions 2 main things.
Yes, 2 core reasons why it stands apart. Number 1, the miracle and the message are the same thing.
Okay, what does the source mean by that exactly?
Think about Musa's staff turning into a snake or Isa healing the sick. Those were external events, visible signs that acted as proof for their message.
The miracle pointed to the message, but wasn't the message itself.
Right, but the source argues the Quran is different. It says the message is the miracle and the miracle is the message.
So the Quran is its own proof. It doesn't need something outside itself to validate it.
That's the argument. Its miraculous nature is intrinsic in the language, the structure, the content, the impact. It's presented as totally unique in that way among divine revelations.
Okay, interesting. And the second big difference the source points out.
It's removed from the constraints of time and place.
Right. This seems really central to the source's argument about its power.
Yeah, think about it. The source prompts you. If you believe today that Musa's staff turned into a snake or Isa raised the dead.
Your belief is based on historical accounts, right? Texts like the Quran or tradition. You weren't there.
Exactly. You're relying on testimony from the past, faith in the report.
But the Quran's miracle, the challenge,
Mm.
the source says that's different.
Completely different, it argues. It wasn't just for the eyewitnesses back in 7th century Arabia.
It's accessible 4,000 miles away, 1,400 years later, as
Yeah.
the source puts it.
Right. The challenge to produce something like it, the linguistic qualities, the preservation, all these things, according to the source, are right there today.
So anyone, anywhere, anytime, can pick it up and engage directly with the basis of the miraculous claim.
That's the idea. The source asks, what other miracle can claim this? To be independent of time, location, specific historical witnesses.
So it's presented as a miracle you can almost test or interact with directly, not just believe in from history. That is a key distinction in this argument.
Definitely.
Okay, so beyond the main challenge, and those two big points being the message itself and being timeless, the source also lists specific internal things about the Quran that it considers miraculous.
Yeah, it goes into more detail, pointing to like 8 different areas within the text itself as proof.
What source?
The most obvious one, maybe especially for the original audience, its language and style.
Unparalleled eloquence, rhetoric. The source claims it's unlike anything human. It captivated even the best Arab poets.
Yeah, it mentions how even fierce opponents like Al-Walid ibn Mughra or Abu Ghal would supposedly sneak off to listen to it being recited. They were drawn by its power, even if they wouldn't admit why publicly.
And the source claims even non-Arabic speakers can sense something different about it.
Just by the sound, the rhythm, the structure, it doesn't sound like human speech. That's the claim.
Okay, what else?
Preservation. And the fact that its preservation was supposedly predicted within the text itself.
So it's not just that it was preserved, but that God said from the beginning he would preserve it.
Exactly. The source contrasts this with other ancient religious texts, emphasizing the Quran's early standardized compilation. It argues there's essentially but one Quran around the globe, no significant variations in the Arabic over centuries.
Then there are predictions.
Accurate prophecies of future earnings, yeah. The main example given is predicting a Roman victory over the Persians.
Which seemed unlikely at the time.
Highly unlikely, apparently. The Romans had just suffered a big defeat, but the source says it came true within the companion's lifetime.
Okay. Then stories of older prophets and nations.
Right. Detailed accounts of figures like Yusuf, Joseph, Musa, Moses, Abraham, Zechariah.
And the point is that these details weren't known to the Arabs in Mecca then.
Completely unknown, the source argues. It quotes the Quran saying, neither you nor your people knew these stories before. So getting these ancient histories right, in detail, is presented as miraculous.
What about the theology itself?
Introducing this strict, coherent monotheism, one God, into a deeply polytheistic society. The source basically asks, how could an unlettered person, as it describes the prophet, come up with such a perfect theology in that environment?
Makes sense as part of the argument.
Yeah.
Then there's laws and morality, the Sharia.
Yeah, transforming what the source calls a lawless, ignorant society, the Jahiliyyah. Introducing just laws, high morals.
Like what specifically?
Addressing racism by stating everyone comes from one origin, protecting women, condemning female infanticide, establishing principles of truth, honesty, justice. The source mentions Jafar explaining this to the Negus, the king of Abyssinia.
And that explanation was persuasive, historically.
Yes, it led the Negus to grant protection to the early Muslims, showing the power of the message itself.
Okay, nearly there. 2 more points about the human interaction with the text, the impact on listeners.
The profound emotional, spiritual effect, even on people who don't understand the Arabic. Feelings of awe, tears, fear, hope. A sense that it's coming from God, not a human source. The impact on the pure heart, the source calls it.
And the last one is very visible. Memorization.
Yeah, the fact that millions worldwide, including young kids, memorize the entire book over 600 pages accurately, even if Arabic isn't their first language. The source calls this a walking, talking, living miracle.
Every hafiz is an ayah. Every person who memorizes it is a sign.
Exactly, because the argument goes, no other book in history is memorized completely by so many people.
Wow. Okay. And the source wraps up with praise to God and a prayer.
Right. So putting it all together, this source presents the Quran not just as a miracle, but the ultimate miracle.
Unique because it is the message, it's timeless, and it has all these internal qualities: language, preservation, predictions, stories, theology, laws, impact, memorization. That's the case it makes.
Exactly. It's a comprehensive argument for its singular status.
It definitely gives you a different way to think about miracles, moving beyond just historical events to the text itself as a primary sign you can engage with today.
And it leaves you with a pretty big question to think about. If this source's claims about the Quran's unique, features its language, its preservation, its content, its impact are compelling, if they do seem beyond normal human ability, what does that imply about where it came from?
Or maybe just thinking about the concept itself. How does this idea of a miracle that's timeless, accessible through a text right now, change how you might view faith or history or even knowledge itself? Something to definitely mull over.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. I hope you've gained some valuable insights. If you're a truth seeker, yearning for divine light and ready to step out of darkness, now is your moment. The truth is that Allah is the one and only creator of the universe. He has sent over 124,000 messengers and prophets to guide humanity, starting with Adam and culminating with the final messenger, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all. If you resonate with this message, you might be ready to embrace Islam. Simply recite the Shahada, the Islamic declaration of faith. For further support, feel free to join our WhatsApp group. You can send us a private message there. The link is in the video description. Don't wait until it's too late. We look forward to connecting with you soon.